quarter of the meat before you cooked it? And he said, I don't know, because that's the way that Mom always did it. So he says, wait a second. So he gets out his cell phone and he calls his mother and he said, Mom, why when you make pot roast do you cut off a quarter of it? And she said, I don't know, because that's the way Grandpa always did it. And luckily Grandpa was still living, and so a call was made to Grandpa. Grandpa, please tell me why when we make a pot roast, we cut off a quarter of it. And the grandpa said, oh, that's so easy. It didn't fit in the pan. It's amazing how traditions get passed down and we never even realize why they are a tradition. In Fiddler on the Roof, I love the opening number with Tevye. You know, when he talks about living in that small town in Russia, and he talks about how important tradition is. That tradition is what holds the community together, that they all have certain things that they do, and it's always been that way, and it always will be that way, because it is tradition. And then he goes on to say, and if you want to know why we do it, I can't tell you. It is so true. It's just little things from everyone's lives. There are traditions that are passed down. Some are really important, some are not. You know, some people have the tradition with salt to put a little bit over their left shoulder when they're cooking, old wives' tales. You know, or for good luck or whatever it might be. I think it's just a waste of good salt. But, you know, the church throughout its history, and not even the church, all the way back to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Moses, that the traditions that were put in place so that we might remember. Tomorrow night is the first night of Passover. I think it's wonderful that Good Friday and Passover fall on the same day. But at the Passover Seder, the youngest person at the table, last year Carrie and I were invited over to Rabbi Knox's household, and I was the youngest person at the table, so I had to ask the questions. What makes this night so special? You know, why do we do this? And it's good questions, because it is those traditions of remembering acts of God throughout history, remembering our parents in ways that they always did this for Easter, and so you always do that for Easter. Traditions help connect us to each other and to the past. On this Maundy Thursday, one of the things that we do as part of our liturgical tradition is, of course, we partake of the Last Supper, the Holy Eucharist. The Holy Eucharist is a central thing of what we do as Christians. It is the sacrament that connects us to Jesus Christ. And we do it because he told his disciples, do this in remembrance of me. And so pretty much at every service here at St. Jude and throughout the more Catholic sides of the faith, the Eucharist is a core. And during that Eucharist, there's always the retelling of the Last Supper story of Christ's death and his resurrection and his ascension. That's always there. It's actually called the anamnesis. It's told to keep the story alive so that although we're not re-sacrificing Christ, we remember the sacrifice that he gave us on Good Friday. And we also remember our own sacrifices that we make in order to serve our living and loving God. Another tradition, though, that was lost, but after Vatican II started coming back in many different denominations. And that is to do what Jesus also told his disciples to do. In that upper room, according to John, Jesus went and he removed his outer cloak, he put a towel around, and he washed his disciples' feet. Now that would be a job for a slave or a servant. It would never, ever be a job for somebody like Jesus. But he washed their feet because he needed them to know that to follow him, that they need to be servants of God. And what a better example for them, for him to wash their feet. Peter, of course, never gets it. He wanted his whole body washed. But that is why, though, we have the tradition tonight of washing feet. It's a powerful symbol for us priests who, in our calling towards ministry, promise to be servants of God and God's people. It's a tradition that, again, connects us with the past. This whole week, from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday, is a week of traditions. It's a week of retracing the steps of Christ that he made from his triumphal entry into Jerusalem, to the upper room, to the Garden of Gethsemane, to the betrayal, through his torture, through this journey to Golgotha, to the tomb, and then to the empty tomb. We retell these stories every year so that we might never forget what Jesus did for us. My sisters and my brothers, your lives and our lives are all filled with traditions. This Holy Week, this Triduum, this great 3 days that we are part of, may you realize how important the traditions are, and then not be afraid to share the joy of those traditions with others. Amen.
Amen.